watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com. Endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide.
Maxed Out Money Hour is your internet TV program all about money and what makes it go around to have it work for you, or not. Host Ninon and Coach Steve will be featuring informative interviews with financial companies, CEOs, and executives, providing insights into the financial world and their products, services, operations, and an outlook for our financial future. Here are your hosts, Ninon and Coach Steve.
Welcome to the Maxed Out Money Hour, everybody, on this beautiful and warm Tuesday evening in Denver, Colorado. I want to welcome my co-host, Ninon DeVerderosa, as well as our guest this evening, who is Chris Crown, and he is joining us from somewhere in what state?
Utah.
Utah. That's right. Not that far away. All right, welcome, everybody.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Hi, Ninon. I'm doing great.
Good.
And you?
Good. So what was this weather like in Denver? It sounds beautiful. It sounds like
today
Vegas is beautiful. Huh?
Today was 60. I spent some time out.
Awesome,
outside.
Awesome. So what news have you got for me in this money place out there? What's going on with our financial status? Not mine personally.
Well,
we won't talk about that.
Yeah, I have some very interesting news, actually.
Oh, good.
For the first time in the last 4 years, the U.S. government is actually doing something. They
You're
are
kidding.
suing the S&P over the pre-crisis mortgage ratings. And I think, well, they're looking for $5 billion in damages. And I think if this is going to stick, all the states are going to follow. So I think S&P is owned by McGraw-Hill. They have deep pockets, but I don't know if their pockets are that deep.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because I had something coming up, and my little thing that I found out about was Bank America is back in the picture again. Well, I don't think it ever left the picture. But, yeah, it's a funny thing. We put Bank America on the quoting side of it, and whether you have good news or bad news, at least their name is mentioned. And sometimes when you're an actor or actress and your name is mentioned, good, bad, right, or wrong, you're out there. So Bank America is definitely out there. They're trying to sort out, I think it's countrywide still. You know, this goes back a few years now, and they're trying to sort out countrywide. And they said, this is a quote from the chief executive of Bank America from He was in Switzerland at one of these meetings, whatever. He said countrywide was like carrying a 250-pound backpack. He said there is so much going on with it. They've got so much to pay out that it's such a disaster, and Bank of America's carrying it. But then, you know, someone has to carry it, and they decided to do that because I think pigs get fat and hogs choke. I think they became hogs. So that's the news on Bank of America. There's a lot more about them, by the way, because they're in big trouble. But they were not fair with their mortgages and everything, so everyone's in trouble. I guess is this all coming to surface now?
I think so.
Chris?
It certainly is. I mean, right now, if you look at what's happening in the real estate market, it's definitely coming to surface.
Yeah, and you should know about that. Chris Crown.
Hang on for a second. Let me introduce Chris formally. So we have Chris Crown with us today, and he's a real estate investor, also a public speaker and an author, and he's the founder of Strongbrook Group. And I think after watching a few of your videos, I would say that you are an inspirational speaker, because whatever you're talking about, Chris, I just want to sign up.
Wow.
I agree with you, absolutely. I was just in Vegas with Chris. Chris had this whole entourage down there. He had this seminar, networking going on. Amazing. I mean, Chris, where'd you get all this energy from? I know you're young, but go.
You know what? I think you guys know what it's like to live with passion. And when that passion builds up and you get a chance to start changing lives, personally, I can't think of something that creates greater fulfillment than seeing other people thrive and succeed. And at some point in the journey, it's all about ourselves. And then at some point, hopefully we all get to a place where we find out that the real joy and satisfaction comes not from just what you have, but how you're serving other people, how you're helping other people, how you're inspiring other people. And so that's really replaced any physical possession I've ever had in this life. It's just people and just loving people.
That's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
And you took that.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Chris, we have very similar values. So I'm the founder of Conscious Evolution Media, and our values are basically two simple things: how can we provide value, and how can we serve people?
Yeah.
And if we do those two things, everything else takes care of itself.
It all falls into place. It really does. And, I just wish a few more people would take on the energy that Steve, you have, and Chris, you have, because what I see out there is an awful lot of angry people that are sort of upset and really don't care much for other people. And hopefully, with changes that we can make, maybe they can start sort of, forget about themselves a little bit and help somebody else, because then they're going to feel, I wrote a book called Joyful Volunteering. It's all about giving. And it's amazing how you feel when you give. You give something, and I think, Chris, that's what you're doing in this real estate guru that you've turned into. Why don't you explain a little bit about what your actually Strongbrook is all about?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that I can't say that I started the company out of self-interest or out of wanting to change the world and help other people. It was really in the beginning struggling personally in my own life, and I ended up developing a real estate system that helped me purchase 25 properties that ended up creating a 6-figure residual income. And once I was able to quit my job and breathe and give myself permission to do what I wanted with my life, that's when it became really apparent that maybe there was more to life. In fact, my wife and I, we had been retired for several months, and we were getting ready to have our second child, Kaiser. And we were walking hand in hand on a beach off of Jamaica called Kokomo. They sing about it in one of the songs. And as we were walking hand in hand, my wife turned to me. She said, "Chris, don't get me wrong. It's been nice having you at home all this extra time." That was, I think, sarcastic. But she said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And that really got me thinking and questioning, okay, if you can help someone take care of their own life and situation, then you can free up to live with this permission to do more. And so we ended up putting a company together called Strongbrook that now has changed thousands of lives. It's all across the country, and it basically is helping people duplicate our exact results that I've created in my life. And Ninon, you got to see that in Vegas.
I did. It was amazing.
Several hundred people there. Will be in Seattle this weekend, New York the weekend after, then Denver, Texas, and right now it's spreading really all over the country. And what it is it's about restoring entrepreneurship. Strongbrook is about restoring the founding fathers' ideals of owning real estate and really having control over your financial life, so that you have that permission to live, as pursuing life and happiness and the life that you want and your purpose. And
well, you're giving, from what I saw, you're giving an awful lot of people that are kind of given up a little bit, and you've given them hope, you've given them something to work for, but what you really have given them is something of their own, that they actually own it. Because give a little story about how people can buy their first home, through your program. Because this is an incredible program, Steve, and you've got to listen to this program. It's amazing. How do they get to buy a home through you?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that I work with people. I work with those that are really in need of a home, and if they tried to walk into a bank today and say, "Bank, help me out," the bank's not going to help them out. Maybe they've got a glitch on their credit or their finances or work history. Banks have become really finicky with everything that's happened in the last decade. And so what I do is I buy homes as an investor, and the other side of my business is helping investors buy homes. And then what we do is we put these families in these homes, and we help these families over a 2, 3, 4 year period of time actually get to the point where they can purchase these homes from us. And so we call it compassionate financing. I wrote about it in one of the books that I've written. It's called the Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
And then the other side is helping investors.
Is there another path, Chris?
Yeah, there's another book.
Other than a straight one?
It's right over here.
There's always a straight path. I'm just hoping you're going to stay on it, Steve. Stay on that straight path, Steve.
There is no straight path. It's just like when I go from New York to Los Angeles, it's a constant correction. And that's how we get from New York to Los Angeles. They're consistently correcting how they get there. It's not a straight path, but that's fine. I understand.
Well, the side is that we've got this. It's one thing to put families back in homes, but then we need people to do that, and the government doesn't have a really way of doing that. So what we do is we take average, everyday Americans and we turn them into investors, and help them put families in homes. And so that whole system is turnkey because real estate's a pretty difficult business. My team, I've got a couple hundred experts, and what we'll do is we'll find the homes for people, we'll line up the financing, we'll do the property management. And so even for the investor, it's a turnkey process. So it's creating a win-win all across the board. It's creating a win-win for people that say, hey, I've lost hope in my finances, my 401ks, my IRAs, and real estate, especially right now, is breathing hope right back into people. And then they get to turn around and put families in homes. And so we're solving several problems in the economy right now.
Well, actually, yes, and also you're giving them something to do with their money. Rather than their money sitting wherever it's sitting, which is all these different places it can sit, that they're not really earning much interest on it, whereas if they invest in it by buying a home, and I think with your program, it seems to be such a trustworthy program that you're giving, especially the older generation, you're giving them a place to go where they can trust, because I think the older people, I'm not going to say they're untrustworthy, but a lot has happened to them. They've all lost a lot of money. A lot of them have lost their life savings, and they've just got maybe a couple of 100,000 left, or maybe even 50,000, or maybe not even anything. And you seem to have come in and given this helping hand of trust, which means that they can buy a house, and you can manage it, and you rent it, and you clean it up, and they buy it, and then they make money on it. Is that correct?
It is correct, but and Steve, I'm going to say this. We can blame the last 5 years of the economy on why people are where they're at, but let's get really honest about the state of America today and why we're maxed out. It's because society says the safe thing to do is to put money in 401ks and IRAs and to do this kind of retirement plans. But if you really think about it, it is an impossible mathematical equation for a person in a 40-year working life to actually save enough assets so that when they retire, they can maintain even something close to the same standard of living. I mean, the system was broken before 2009 and 2007. 2009 just makes it, I think, a little bit more painful, and it makes it hit a little bit harder home. But hopefully people are waking up and starting to challenge the financial systems that are out there, because right now, think about it. It's people working hard at a job after they've gotten their degree that says they're smart and taking all their leftover money and getting it to somebody else. And what we're trying to say is take that money back and let's teach you how to do good basic financial decisions like in real estate that has created so many successful people. And if you're using a predictable system, then you can leverage that and over a short period of time, at 5 or 10 years, make up for what you can't do in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, so I want to add something to that. And what I want to add to it is I want to welcome everybody in the Block TV chat room, by the way. And also
are we on Block TV? Oh.
We're not featured yet, but there's a whole bunch of people in there.
Okay.
So what I want to say is we're actually, all of us are responsible for the results that we have created. So it's not like pointing the finger to the banks, or to other institutions. We're all responsible in one way or another. I was in banking for 9 years. I made my mistakes. I gave mortgages to people that shouldn't have had mortgages. So from my own personal experience, we all have a stake in this result. Now, how do we change this result? I think we change it by all of us becoming responsible. And I think that's what, Chris, you said. Let's stop listening to all the experts out there, because there's lots of experts, right?
More than ever. More than ever out there.
And let's begin to listen from within. And I think you're also, Chris, into personal development, so you will connect easily to what I'm talking about. So I think all of us need to screen
take responsibility.
all the stuff that we are hearing and seeing out there, and make sure that it's congruent with who we are and what our values are, and does it make sense? And that's how we need to make choices and decisions from this point on, not based on what's popular, not based on the fact that back in 2008 you could go to a mortgage bank and get a loan for 100% mortgage, and all you had to do is sign your name. Everybody that did that knew that there was something off there, right, Chris?
Absolutely.
With a 560 score, I could give somebody a 100% loan. Don't you think there's something off?
Yeah, so,
No, but nobody,
and we all knew it.
Realized it.
And we all knew it.
we call them heartbeat loans, or hey, if you could here, then you qualify.
Yeah,
and then, of course, what I said at the beginning of the show, S&P said, oh, these mortgage products, these securities are fantastic.
But there's some people out there. There are some people out there that just should not have loans because they don't know they don't know how to handle them, and then they get themselves into all this sticky wicket, and they've got this house and all these payments, and they just throw it up in the air, and they have no idea what's going on explaining what it is and what it is to have a house. You've got insurance, you've got taxes, and I think people don't realize they've got all that stuff. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. They need to be taught. I mean, if you look at the education that we do not get in this country, it's a financial education. You know, people leave colleges and what's a mortgage and what's arbitrage and what are some of these just real basic financial principles that are going to be a part of my life? And so, Steve, I agree with you. It's about taking responsibility. It's taking accountability. And when I see people on this journey of creating wealth with me, there's two parts of it. One part is the how. It's the actual, what are we going to do to create wealth? It's the choices. It's going into the best markets and getting these really seductive low-price deals. But on the other side, it's what's the mentality and what's the thinking? And how do you cultivate a wealthy mindset? Because, you know, real estate isn't always going to be easy. Anyone that has ever invested in real estate knows that it has its moments where it rears its ugly head. And if you don't have the proper training, you can succumb to the weakness in that moment and give up if you haven't developed that fortitude. And so really success, I think, in any endeavor, not just even real estate, but just entrepreneurship, business, family, is really having the tools of, hey, how do we succeed at what we're doing, and then how do we cultivate that really healthy mindset so that we can support whatever challenges may come our way.
Yeah. Let's talk about mindset. Let's talk about mindset for a second, because everybody has a different understanding and how mindset is connected to beliefs. I think I can have some fun with you, Chris, with this. So help the viewers understand from your point of view, what's a mindset, what's a belief?
Well, you know, for me personally, there's a huge difference between a belief and a truth. And I think most people think that they're the same thing. But our beliefs, my belief is that beliefs are what limit us. Our beliefs are what make up our paradigm, and overall mindset is what we call that. And so some of our beliefs are positive, some are negative, some are true, some are just downright lies. And so if let's have developed a mindset that is limiting with these beliefs, then we've got to figure out, A, how to recognize them, and B, how to step over them or replace them with something a lot better when we recognize them. Because most people just think that, hey, if I have a belief, if I believe something, then it must be true. But if you look at the root word in that word belief, it's lie, meaning that there's some limit to that belief. And if we're willing to investigate our thoughts, then we'll have a chance to learn something about ourselves along this really cool journey.
And that's what I think a lot of people out there need with their financial situation. They need to actually sort of get this whole thing together and understand what money is, what they're spending out, what the little luxuries they can have, but they have a definite payment every single month on a car or a house on rent or whatever it may be. And I don't think people believe that that's really what happens every month. that they've got to pay all these bills. And I think this is where so many people get into trouble.
Well, that's
Chris,
reality. What you're talking about, Ninon, is reality.
I know, but they don't face up to reality.
Most people are in la-la land.
Yeah, well, this is the problem, and this is where Chris comes in, because Chris is teaching them. Chris, you're very young. I think you're 32, 34, or something. You're very young, and how are you helping the younger generation to actually get in a place where you are? I mean, maybe not have as much money, but at least get into a place where you are of taking responsibility as a young person.
I've got to be really honest with you, Ninon. It's a real challenge. Most people, the way society has us groomed is you go through college and the first thing you want to do with your new big salary is you want a house and a car, and then you want to get married, and then you want to travel. And a lot of people will get neck deep in debt. They already learned it in college that it's okay. So then they pass it on, and 10 years after college, people have a lifetime worth of debt to pay off. Most of the people I work with are in their 40s, especially 50s, a lot in their 60s. And occasionally I get to work with young people, but again, a lot of young people, they have this idea that I've got time to figure it out and I'm just going to kind of follow society's plans. So
you said something very interesting.
Privilege for me whenever I get to work.
Yeah. You said something very interesting, Chris. You said that they are used to being in debt. And that is because of their college career that they have to pay for, because they come out with a debt of anywhere from, I don't know, 20,000 to 200, 3,000. They could be owing. I know people of 50 and 60 years old are still paying their college debt. So we're actually teaching we're teaching our younger generation to be in debt?
We are. And we're watching it from our parents. I mean, honestly, I actually learned it from watching my parents, how they dealt with money. And now my parents, they had 9 children. So this is a really large family, and I'm number 4. And so they had a really good excuse to always have run out of money because they had a lot of mouths to feed. But when I was in college, and my wife encouraged me to get my job while I was in college, and I thought, no, honey, I'm going to go get debt. Debt will help finance our way during this period of our life. That's what my parents said that we should do. And she said, Chris, in my family, we were taught to stay out of debt, and so if you get a job, maybe we can actually pay for college. And so I got a job, and while I was working the job, I started quickly connecting the dots that I was working really hard at a job, and it was really hard to keep my head above water. So how much harder was it going to be just even after college? And that's when we really decided that we wanted to reconsider the way America does money, and I created a completely different system and rules for creating wealth. And especially in today's economy, it's never been easier to manifest money. It's never been easier to create wealth if you have the right belief system, but if you also then have the right financial system. And so,
our younger generation is not thinking that way.
I gotta know this. All right, so Chris, you were not like this when you were born, and you did go through the same thing all of us have gone through, which is you listened to your parents for the first 6 years and believed everything they said. So what I want to know is, when was the moment, share with our viewers, the moment when you said, so all this stuff, all these beliefs and all these things that I learned, they're not really true. And how did you transform yourself? Because what you have gone through is a transformation. You don't get to be a Chris Klein. Like, my image of you is that you're 30-something, you're very successful, you know how to make money, you know how to live, you know how to enjoy life, you know how to inspire people. That takes something. Tell me, or tell the viewers, that moment in your life when everything shifted.
Well, I had been married for about 6 months, Steve, and so I had been working this, felt like double life. I mean, I was doing this full-time school thing, and I was doing this full-time career thing. And so I would get up at 4 and 5 in the morning, and then I'd get off campus by noon to get my job, and I was at my job till 8 or 9, and then I'd come home to hours of homework. And I have to be really honest, I actually hated that part of my life. It was lots of hard work, and I was moving backwards. And that I also had gotten this job that I didn't like, which was telemarketing. And so every day long I was talking to people that didn't want to talk to me. But worse, it's done what I was doing. They had all been to college. They had good paying jobs. They had good careers. They had been good savers. And in their 50s, they were in such a bad situation for retirement that after 1,000 calls like that, I started realizing, oh my gosh, Chris, if you go to college and get a degree, you're putting yourself on this path. I started seeing some writing, but Steve, the moment, to answer your question, I mean, the moment was coming home to my little 400 square foot studio apartment, and I walked in through the door, and I found my wife in absolute tears. She had been crying for some time because their cheeks had been stained with her tears, and I had never seen her that way before. And I honestly thought someone must have died because it was tragic the way she was bawling. And so I was kind of worried, but I asked her what was wrong, and she said, Chris. And I was surprised. She was crying because she said tuition is due in 3 weeks and we can't pay it. And I thought, okay, that's a problem, but we can try and fix that. And then she said, no, Chris, I reconciled the checkbook. Rent's due in 5 days and we can't pay that either. And I thought, okay, well, that's hard. But
another problem. Yeah.
She was crying was because she had intended to go shopping that day and she had no money. And I came home, and after she said that, I walked into our kitchen, and literally every cupboard was bare. There was no food, and my wife was crying because she was hungry. And that was the moment where I felt like the worst provider on the planet. I felt so insignificant. I felt pathetic. I felt small. I felt worthless. And it hurt so much that I vowed that day that I wasn't A, going to follow society's plan, and B, I wanted to do something fast. I didn't want a 30-year plan. I didn't want a 50-year plan. I wanted to enjoy my life now in the moment. And what it did is it put me on a path to seek out mentors that had made millions of dollars that could train me firsthand. And it put me on a path to seek a number of mentors, mindset mentors, spiritual mentors, psychologists, that could teach me how to take all of the limited thinking that was holding me down and make room for my greatness and make room for the greatness that is within all of us. And that was that really.
Did you surround yourself with very intelligent people and people that you actually knew would take you to where you wanted to go?
I had to. There was no other way. I was doing the school system, and my professors weren't going to get to the classroom and take me by the hand and make it happen. And I didn't know a single course I could enroll in called Financial Freedom, and I just wanted to be free. I never wanted my wife to look at me that way again. And so I listened in my heart. I followed inspiration, and within a very short period it took 4.5 years for me to accumulate my first portfolio. And I have to tell you that as sad as that day was when I found my wife in tears, we had made this plan that if I had $10,000 a month coming in residually, which to college kids felt like $1 billion, that I would quit my job. And I remember 1 year out of college when I had $12,000 a month coming in, and I got so antsy. I did not want to show up this one day to work, and I turned to Clen and I say, Clen, is it time? And she looked, she smiled, she says it's time. So work that day, and I walked into Aaron's office, my boss, and I said, Aaron, and I had thought to myself, what is the amount of money that he could give you an increase in salary to keep you? And so I said, Aaron, I need a $70,000 raise. And he laughed.
Maybe you have got to do it.
I had to do it because I was going to walk anyway. So he said no, of course, and honestly, that next week I had a retirement party, and it was such a happy, blissful time. I called all of my friends and all my family. I said, please just celebrate this freedom because I have unmortgaged my life. I have given my wife and my family a legacy, and it's going to keep on growing. But here's the coolest part. I had no idea that next year that I would triple my income, just because I was free to do what I wanted with my life and pursue my passions. And so that's when life actually got really, really fun. And ever since then, I have been a financial liberator, taking people with whom my message resonates and literally by the hand with my staff and with my personal team, helping them accomplish exactly what I have. And it's fun because everywhere I travel now are people that shake my hand and say, Chris, I just bought my 14th home, or I bought my 5th home, and I've got this cash flow. Or the most recent one, Chris, I helped my parents buy 5 homes, and they're retired, and the money from those 5 homes is now paying for their.
Asking for $70,000 he could have turned around and said yes. If he had said yes, what would you have stayed?
Maybe for a couple of months. I think at some point, quickly outgrown it. I'm really glad that he didn't, to be honest. Everything just happened so perfectly. In fact, if anything, I sometimes wonder if I should have jumped a little sooner, but, here we are.
Timing
Well, the good news is that we are being featured on Block TV, so that means anybody that comes to the front page of Block TV, they see our show, the only show. So thank you for the webmasters at Block TV to put us up. And Chris, that is one of the best shared that I have heard probably in the last 10 years, and I hear a lot of them. It absolutely touched, moved, and inspired me, and hopefully touched, moved, and inspired a lot of our viewers as well. Thank you for being so authentic and willing to be vulnerable and willing to share not only the good, but also some of the not so good things that happened in your life.
Yeah, I think when people see people like Chris, that is very successful, they see you where you are now, and what you just presented was how it happened, and that step you took, and the hours of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and probably going to bed at 12, 1 o'clock, or maybe 2 o'clock, and just having 2 hours sleep. People don't understand that you have to do this, and it doesn't always have to be at a young age. Sometimes this can be done any part through your life, that you've got to change gears. And I think your message was, don't be afraid to change gears.
Absolutely. And I have a huge passion for manifesting. I believe people can manifest any life that they want, but most people give up on themselves way too soon. They don't have faith in themselves. They don't believe in themselves. They don't take accountability for choices. But there are universal laws and principles, and Ninon, this is where I felt, and Steve, even though we haven't met, just the name of Conscious Evolution Media, when I wrote this next book that just came out really this month called The Conscious Creator, the purpose of that book was to tell people that, hey, if you have a dream, something that you want to manifest, something in your life that's currently not there, if you'll follow these particular laws that are universal to all of us and stick with what you want long enough and move in the direction that it talks about how you can manifest that life. And so that's even just being on the journey, you can feel the hope every single day. You don't have to arrive at the destination you want to be at to be fulfilled. There
is no destination, Chris. The only thing there is the journey.
It is. Well, it's the journey, but making it exciting. I tell a lot of people out there, if I die right now, I really don't mind. I have had the most beautiful life. I have certainly taken
I mind.
risks. Oh, good, I can't stop my mind. But I have taken risks like you, Chris. I've taken risks in life, and people said, oh, Ninon, you can't do that, you can't do this. And I look at them like, well, why can't I? So if it doesn't work and it doesn't happen, so what? At least I tried it. And most times it was successful. But it's taking that journey, it's taking those little risks and actually fulfilling what you really want to do, that you think that maybe other people won't accept. But don't look at it that way. Look at what you are going to accept, the journey you want to go on. Take those risks, because I think they're very important. And it isn't always that you need money either, is it? Do you always need to have money to take that risk?
Absolutely not. In fact, I think in real estate, the two greatest excuses I ever hear is that, to do real estate, I either need to have money or I need to have credit. And if I don't have those, then I can't do real estate. And I think, wow, you know what? I used to think that too, until a very particular moment happened that totally rocked my world. And the reason why I've been able to buy hundreds of homes is not being limited by money or credit. It was because I really discovered that there was no such thing as a good excuse that ever needed to get in the way of going where you wanted to go and doing what you wanted to do. I had found a way to figure out how to get my first 4 homes with very little out of pocket, because just like you can do today, I bought my first house with an FHA down payment, the same 3.5% down payments, and the house had a basement apartment that paid my whole mortgage. So when my wife and I moved into this house, we lived for free. And then because we bought with all this equity, we were able to transfer that into a second house a year later. And over 2 years, we did this 4 times. So I started my portfolio, And I remember sitting in college, listening to one of my professors, and actually not listening to my professor, but I was thinking, man, Chris, how do you get that next house? And my father-in-law had watched me doing all these, what he thought were crazy things. In fact, when I bought my house, I was 23, I was young, I was a freshman practically. And when I bought my second house, he thought I was getting a divorce because he thought I needed two houses.
Well, that's funny.
I thought it was crazy, but this guy thinks I'm crazy. When I did my third and my fourth house, he became more open. And when I did my fifth house, he ended up partnering with me because he said, Chris, I've been watching you. And I showed him the money I was making, and he said, wow, you know how to find deals, and you know how to buy them with equity, and you're doing all the work and managing. And so he offered to leverage some of his 401k and credit. We partnered, and that's when I started realizing, wow.
And you're actually bringing in an older person, because you're bringing in somebody that's sort of got to be at least 20, 30 years older than you, and they're now seeing what you're doing. So this is a great thing for the older generation, actually, to do something with their money, because you can't make it in the banks anymore. And I don't think people understand that wherever you put your money, just to sit there, it's not sitting there. The other person's smart enough to use it, and they're investing that money, because they know it's sitting there, they know you're not going to do anything with it, and now they're investing in it. So they're making money on your money that you could be making yourself.
People don't even know that, Ninon. If they knew the amount of money that people made controlling our money, I think it would completely boggle people's mind.
Yeah, they don't understand that. I truly believe people think their little bit of money, whether it's 200, 300, 400,000, 50,000, whatever, is just sitting there waiting for them. It just sits there and makes money. People don't realize that they take that money and invest it. Now, I want to go back to when you bought your houses, when you were quite young. Did you buy inexpensive homes, or what kind of homes did you sort of start out with?
I have a very specific formula. Even though I do real estate, most people don't realize that I don't like real estate. I think it's so easy to mess real estate up. It's, hey, do I flip? Do I do a fourplex, commercial? There's so many things you can do. And despite my youth, I've got a very, very conservative model. I think that's why I attract a lot of baby boomers and people in that generation that need financial help. And it's because my model is all based on commoditized real estate. It's a widget. Everything that I buy today is 1,700 square feet, single-family home, plus or minus 20%, 3 to 5 bedrooms, entry level, built in the last 15 years. I have a very specific formula with 100 points of criteria, and if it doesn't meet the criteria, I don't do it. Because if you look at my last 1,000 deals, you can now compare them across the board, and you get amazing information. I get a new investor that comes along, and they say, Chris, everyone's favorite fantasy if they're a newbie, right? Oh, what if I get a house that never rents? And I can say, well, based on the last 540 houses in 2012's analysis, it's going to take 20.
It'll rent. Yeah, but you're on a very basic, you've got into a very basic area of what most people can afford and what most people want to move into with their 2, 3 children. You've kept not too big. It's capable for them to handle it, for them to look after it, and then for them to sort of also make money on it. But if they had a little extra room that they weren't using, do you advise them to rent that out and make a little extra money like you did when you rented your basement?
You know, it really depends. Everyone has a different. I meet couples that say, "Oh my gosh, I would absolutely not do that," and I say, "Great, I respect that." Sure. And there are others that say, "You know what? We're willing to go on the frugal if it means that we can get ahead." I mean, when I bought my very first house, Ninon and Steve, if you take a look at it, I wish I had a picture of it here for you. It would fit in it would fit in my great room right now. I mean, it was tiny, but it was such a blessing. I had an income at the time where I could have bought a newer, nicer, beautiful home. My friend at the time with the same income did a house on the hill, and every time I went to that house, I was jealous because I had this called delayed gratification, but it was so small. I would go to his house and I'd be so angry at myself that I couldn't give myself permission to live it up a little more. Well, 4.5 years later, I was able to custom build the house that I now live in, and it's a beautiful home on the golf course up tucked in the mountains. And it came from delaying gratification. And so it depends. I meet some people that they really want to have it all now, and I don't really feel like it's my role to judge people, at least as much. I judge people what they shouldn't do. Really, it's everyone's got their own life to live, their own choices, and if I can help them make more intelligent choices and accelerate their path to freedom, then I'm doing my part.
Yeah. So choose their own,
Okay.
what they want and what they're comfortable at. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Chris, let me change the subject for a second, because this is something I'm finding that a lot of people, and this is about education, financial education, and since you have had all these great experiences, I'm sure that you would be a great source to get some of this cleaned up. And what I'd like to clean up for people is the difference between personal credit and business credit, and not mingling their personal funds with business funds, and paying attention that if you're not, because you're so committed to having people start their own business, entrepreneurs, but a lot of people these days, especially now, starting new businesses, and they funding it with personal money, and you can have an LLC, of course, but if you're personally funding it, that's commingling funds right off the bat, and you don't get the protection the LLC gives you. Let's talk about that a little bit. How do you find this subject to be interesting, valuable?
I actually do think that it is interesting. It is definitely valuable. A whole myriad of wealth protection strategies that most people have never even heard of. I sit down with multimillionaires all the time, and I show them some of these strategies, and they say, why wasn't I shown how to create this firewall between my personal life and my business life? But even more, how do I take the income from my business and maximize tax write-offs? How do I get everything I produce in my business to grow tax-free? How do I get the income to be 100% untouchable? Those are the things that I have fun with.
Yeah, so listen to this, Chris. Since we're an interactive network, I got something really interesting. So here's Kathy in our Block TV chat room, and she says she's been asking questions like who you are, who I am, who Ninan is, and I told her that focus on the content, not on who we are. That's not really that important. So she says, I know, but this wouldn't really interest a 19, 20-year-old at 2:55 in the morning. Well, Chris, this is exactly what a 20-year-old should be listening to. Yeah. Because if you're going to listen to this at 60, it's too late.
Well, it doesn't have to be too late.
It's not too late, no.
We all know that the younger you better. I got to tell you something.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I got to tell you something right now. I am in the process of creating a board game that's coming out in a couple of months. And the purpose of the board game is to be a little more youthful and fun, and the concept is to say, okay, I'm talking about some financial principles that sometimes go over people's head maybe, or they don't know finance, they don't know how to relate to it. So I said, you know what, let's create a board game, and if someone plays the board game for 90 minutes, I'll give you 10 years of my financial philosophy in 90 minutes of play, and you'll figure out where you could end up in 10 years. And it is amazing how real the game is, and I can't wait for it to come out.
Is this another Monopoly? Are you taking over from Monopoly?
People have a hard time beating me at that game. I played that game endless hours growing up. I love it.
Me too. I did as a child. I played that game all the time because my mom, like you, they didn't have 9 children, they had 5. But there was always mom and dad and the kids, and we all played Monopoly.
Like a realistic version of Monopoly, because one of the things that I do with people is, today, right now, we're just talking about philosophy and theory. I actually have a very concrete plan to how I do my business with people, and I give every person I work with an individual plan. And so one of the things that's really neat is, instead of just saying, hey, here's the system and how it works, it's, okay, where are you at, and where do you want to get? What's your goal? And do you want to get there in 5 years? Do you want to get there in 10 years? And then we literally out an ultra concrete step-by-step how you get there. And once people see that, then they feel like they have something that they can hold that's tangible, and then they want to get going on the path. And so I think it's really important for people to understand what they would actually be doing, because it takes a lot of the mystery out, and it definitely dissipates the fear, because fear can't exist where the information is.
I think also
Sounds
going
really
back to
interesting.
Kathy, who's on. Kathy is still there, but I think for Kathy, she's interested in who we all are, which is also part of the sort of the plan and part of the game. But I think even if she's watching this program, there's a lot of other programs she could be watching, and she's chosen this program. So I think we need to give her credit for actually tuning in and sort of seeing where we're coming from, and especially because we're all sort of different ages and we're all going through different things. And she's more on your side, Chris, the younger generation, and I think she can learn an awful lot, and I think more young people should sort of tune into programs like this and learn more on their financial side. But I want to ask you a question. She's a young lady, Kathy. Do you think that the young women these days should help their husbands and be involved in it? In other words, is your wife involved in everything you do and what you do?
We have to define involvement, because it's one thing to support and it's another thing to actually be an active participant. And
Correct.
I think it's important for people to really choose whether they want to be passive or active, but what they have to have 100% is support. I sat down with a couple today, actually in my home office here, and this man has been tracking me for years, I think 5 years when he first came to me. He's created some great assets. He's in his 50s. And for all the years, he's just told me, my wife will not look at anything because I've burnt the bridge so many times with so many harebrained things. And I finally found something real, and she won't check it out. And so I urged him for months, just have her sit down with me. Well, today was the day after all these years, she sits down with me, and it was really great because we got to talk about her and validate her wants, her wishes, her desires. If you do not have the support of your spouse, you're not going to do anything as transformational as what I do with people. And so you have to have that support. If you're not going to be yoked side by side, whether it's active or passive, it's not going to turn out well, I don't believe.
I agree. I absolutely agree, because I was very much, I've been in real estate for the last 30 years, maybe longer, but I don't want to outdate myself. And my husband and I, we did everything together, and we truly did. And we actually, when I met him, he had no money, nothing. And I may have had more than him, I don't know. But we went into this real estate. He already was in it, actually. But we went in it together, and but I never took his part. And I took care of my part, and he took care of his part. And we worked hand in hand, and we didn't get into each other's way. We didn't argue with each other, and he was sort of, I knew when he was making a deal, I knew when to shut up. And just because I was a woman and felt that I should speak out, I didn't, because I knew as a businesswoman that he was making his deal, and it takes one to make the deal, not two. And so, but I do agree with you that the woman should definitely be the backbone. She's kind of, she is in agreement.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, my wife is my hero. I mean, you got to meet her, Nina.
Yes, I did. She's beautiful.
Sweet children at home with the nanny and grandparents, and I'm really, she supports me, and I couldn't have done anything that I have without her. She was nervous and very intrepid on our first couple of houses, but once that money started coming in, she said,
that does it for a woman every time. Once the money comes in, oh, I love it. Oh, this is the greatest thing you ever did. Sorry, but that's how we are.
Her support me.
Shame on that.
No, not at all. Why do men make money? They make money to spend.
It's not all about how many shoes you have in your closet. All right, so it's only partially about that. All right, so Chris, obviously you can't possibly work with thousands of clients, so I know that you built an organization. Why don't you talk about that a little bit with our viewers? How did you build it, and what does it look like?
I've got a really crazy organization. I do not like the way traditional real estate is done. Traditional real estate says you have a realtor with their own agenda, and you have a loan officer with their own agenda, and a property manager with an agenda, and insurance, and all these different pieces. Everyone's got their own agenda. So what I said when I started doing my own real estate, I said, this is garbage. I don't like this. I don't like all these competing agendas. So what I did is I brought in all of the licensed people under one roof, and then I took all their commissions away, and I gave them a salary plus bonus, and I said, now you guys you're under one roof. You have to work as a team. And so now what happens when someone comes and work with me is I give them a coach, And that coach saves them 341 hours per deal. That coach will work with the acquisition team on getting the best deal around the country brought in, because many of the time they're out of state. It's amazing. It's crazy. I told you numbers. People just don't even believe it sometimes, but we do hundreds of these. So we find them the house, we line up the finance, we line up the property management, and it's all just done in-house. And so the best way I with the client is I give them some video education, but mostly one-on-one education, and it's unlimited. So they can get as much help as they need till they're comfortable. And we write books and we give them this education so they do feel comfortable. And then it's a long-term relationship. So I keep track of the property. Maybe for 6 months they go a little bit inactive because there's nothing to do. They bought their house. Every week I'm looking at what's happening on the property management and rent of it. And then every quarter I'm reevaluating. Oh, shoot, I reevaluate it. Hey, call up. Good news. Did you know your house was $40,000? We can refinance it and go buy another one with no new dollars. And they get really excited about that. So it's really a done-for-you model, and the whole team just bends over backwards. I had a gentleman yesterday that signed up for my program. He flew in today, and I arranged my team on the spot to spend all day with him in all the departments, and he got 60 days of education in one day, and tomorrow he's flying to Phoenix to go look at 5 properties and get them under contract. So if someone wants to go slow or someone wants to go really fast, we have the means to really customize it around their experience there.
Let me ask you a question. How is it to deal with the banks now? Because you're obviously dealing with either foreclosures, sales on the steps, or short sales. So how do you deal with the banks? Have you got in with the banks? Are you friendly with the banks? They know who you are now, and you can go in and buy 4 or 5 houses up, or how do you work all that?
You know, where we're finding some of the best deals right now is through the auctions. So we've got tens of millions of dollars that is actually every day deployed on the auction steps purchasing. The reason why I'm doing that is I don't want my clients to risk their capital. I want an expert to risk their capital. I also want an expert to do the fix-up, so I'm not asking a client to do something that's not realistic for their background and training. I want all when they see the property to be trying to get a renter in it. All of that in this effort to be turnkey, and so you have to be deep with the banks. I work with 50 different banks through my brokerage, and we right now, if you're not doing significant volume, then you're not a player. It's almost a monopolized market that the people that are playing, no mom and pop shops. It's been the death of real estate for mom and pop shops. It's the large organizations, and I think the joy for me is I get to play as a mega conglomerate and help do for my clients what they can't do, and then after I buy it, I get to them and let them pick what they want and piecemeal it off, and that way everyone gets to play, everyone gets to participate in this historic real estate market. And
it also looks as if when they do buy a house from you and they've got everything all done and how it's all worked out, that they've actually now got a house that they've got an immediate profit on, actually, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. I mean, houses that used to sell brand new for $300,000 that we're buying for $100,000, that's not right in any market. I mean, they cost $200,000 to build, and you buy them for $100,000. The exciting, I can help someone buy a house, and a year later turn it into 2, and a few years later turn it into 6, and then turn it into 12, and before you know it, within 10 years, someone's made $1 million, and now they got a 6-figure retirement income. That's pretty cool.
That is, yeah.
Sounds great, Chris. All right, so that's, since this show is in our Financial Evolution channel, which makes me definitely want to ask you to summarize the 6 laws of conscious creation for our viewers, because I can't think of a better way to finish this conversation.
All right, let's do it. So this is it just came out, The Conscious Creator, and it surprises people because my first book is so technical, but this book is a novel. And it's a story about a man that does not like his life, and he discovers entrepreneurship in one of the most unlikely ways, and the unlikely mentor that teaches him the 6 laws. And so the first law that is taught is the law of attraction. And the first thing we do is we debunk it, because it doesn't work for most people unless you live the other laws. It's followed up with learning the law of purpose, meaning who are you and what is your unique set of gifts, talents, so that you can express your purpose, right? When you have things, people think that, oh yeah, I want the perfect life and a big house and nice car and travel whenever I want and be financially free. Well, that's the ego. That's you peel that away and you say, what fulfills you? That's the purpose. Okay. Next, like you were talking about actually, Steve, earlier, I was loving it when you were talking about responsibility, because next is the law of choice and accountability. And it's learning how to make conscious choices, not just the unconscious ones from all of the broken pre-programming that we learned in our youth. The next is the law of alignment, which is my personal favorite law. And it is the process of identifying our limiting beliefs, seeing them for the first time, and then uprooting them, pulling the programming out and replacing it with a new belief, or even better, a truth that is going to serve you in your higher purpose. After that is the law of gestation. And the law of gestation says that everything that you want, sometimes we dream small, sometimes we dream big, and there's an appropriate expectation to ultimately manifest what you want. If you take the 6 laws, live them all, then what you are left is with the power to manifest whatever you want. You just have to follow and live persistently these laws.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Wow.
Well, Chris, you may not know, but we have a cable television show called Living Consciously TV, and I would love to have you come into the studio and do a live show with us if we can make that happen when you're here in Denver. And then we can also, of course, hook up and meet in person.
I know. I tried to get him in this season, but you were all booked this season, so you've got to change something around there, Steve.
Well, anything is possible.
You're the
right?
boss. You're the boss.
You know,
You're the
most
boss,
of the
Steve.
time people have these excuses, right? I don't have time, or I don't have the money, or I don't know how to make it happen. Well,
Chris, when are you going to be in Denver?
I think I'm going to be there on the 23rd, 24th of this month.
You've got to
Okay.
make it work.
The Friday and Saturday, I'll be there.
Saturday, we
Okay.
do. Steve does the show out of the studio on Saturday afternoon. You're booked. I'm booking you.
okay, so we have that's the 23rd.
Yeah.
So if you can make it happen, I don't know if you're doing any public speaking that day.
Yeah,
I
we'll
just
be
want to
doing
make sure you're not.
somewhere near the Denver Tech Center, I believe. We'll be speaking on Friday night and Saturday all day, and I might be able to get away in the afternoon.
Okay,
But
great.
it's from
So if
what,
you can get
3
away
o'clock
for an
to 4?
hour, that would be fantastic, and we'll make it happen. I'll promise I'll make it happen
Promise me.
because I know how.
Of course you do. Now, isn't there a place where people can actually go to get a free book of the Conscious Creator?
Well, the Conscious Creator just came out, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with a free ebook of The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. And people want to go there, then write this down. It's www.strongbrook.com. Sorry, strongbrook.info/NDD. So it is www.strongbrook.info/NDD. And if you go there, there's a brief video telling about what we do. And then if you'll be given instructions for what you can do to get a free copy of the book right then and there. And there's also some wonderful information about what you could do even if you wanted to get a game plan and actually sit down with myself or someone in our company and say, okay, wherever you're at in your life, how do we help you get in the next few years to where you want to go? And let's give you a specific roadmap just for you, just for Jane, just for Bob.
You know, I just want to mention something about Strongbrook, what they do. They're very personal. Chris will talk to anybody, mostly at any time, and he gives his complete time. There is no rush. There's no nothing. You can ask any question on Chris, and he really does give 100% of his time. And then there's Rick also, who's excellent, and there's a few more, Sharon and Linda, and there's a lot of people in there. But what they do is they give their actually 100% time. There is no rushing. There's no nothing. You can ask any question. But it's very unusual to have the boss, which is you, Chris, actually there to talk to anybody, and you do. You are there to give advice or to help or whatever they might need, and then obviously you then give them to the right person. But it's very unusual for somebody in your position to do that. So I want people to know that you're very friendly and you are out there and you will talk to them. So it's something unusual to me.
It's it's my passion. It's my purpose. I'm a financial liberator. We all have one, and I pray that we all live our purpose, because when we do, that is the most fulfilling thing we can do.
And that's what you're doing. You're living your purpose. You're living what you really want to do, and you're not inhibited by it, and you don't worry about it, and you just do it. But most people don't.
Okay, great, Chris. So I got to fulfill on